All right, college football and stuff here. I'm going to be talking about the national championship game in this video. Alabama versus Ohio State. I think it's going to be a great game. All right, the national championship, the last game of the year. My last pick had a pretty good season. Hopefully I'm going to get one last one correct. So Alabama versus Ohio State, Monday, January 11th, 8 p.m. Alabama, an 8-point favorite, up from a 7.5-point favorite earlier in the week. So I think this is going to be a really, really good game. I'm going to go back. First off, I'm going to talk about the Alabama-Notre Dame game a little bit, the Clemson-Ohio State game, some of the things I saw in those, and how I think some takeaways from those games to put towards this game. And then I'll talk about the matchups, some of the keys to this national championship game, and then I'll give my pick. So starting off with Alabama versus Notre Dame. Now, Alabama controlled that game the entire way through. It was never in question. Alabama got off to a huge lead in the first half and then just coasted. This was exactly, I think, the game Nick Saban wanted. Notre Dame was never a threat to Alabama. Alabama really shut them down offensively, at least as far as their ability to score went. And Alabama was able to score essentially at will, and Notre Dame had no answer to it. It was really in almost every way a blowout. So looking at the stats from that game, Alabama won 31-14. Pretty even in total yards. Alabama had more, but not a blowout yardage-wise. Pass yards was where Alabama had the edge. They had about 50 more yards. Rush yards were essentially exactly the same as far as total yards go. Now, the yards per pass and the yards per rush numbers, I think, are the really big things to look at here. So Alabama, 9.9 yards per pass. So averaging a touchdown, or averaging a first down on every pass play. Notre Dame, 5.6 yards per pass. Yards per rush, Alabama at 5.6. Notre Dame at 3.7. Now, these are interesting. So, of course, anything close to 10 yards per pass is being very effective as an offense. Now, the 5.6 for Notre Dame is not effective. So, really, to be effective on a per play basis, pass yards, you need to be at least 6 or 7-ish to have an offense that is functioning well. And rushing yards, you need to be generally at least 4 yards per rush in order to have an effective run game. So really, Alabama was able to shut down both of those for Notre Dame, and Alabama was well over really what your baseline for an effective offense is in both of those stats. And that really showed in the game. There was no point where it really felt like if Alabama needed to score, Alabama could. It never really felt like Notre Dame could stop them if they absolutely had to. And it never seemed like Notre Dame had the explosiveness to come out there and score points to make any sort of threat against Alabama. Of course, I picked Alabama to cover in that game. They let Notre Dame score that late touchdown that kept the spread just under the 21 that I had picked Alabama to win by. Little sad about that, but that's something Nick Saban does not care about at all. He completely dominated that game. They won easily. That's all he cares about. I think Notre Dame obviously would not be competitive with any of these 3 other playoff teams. Having watched the rest of the bowl games, I'm a little bit less upset that they put Notre Dame in there. I didn't see anyone else really that I felt like should have been there. Maybe Oklahoma, but Oklahoma has had so many chances and hasn't been able to get anything done. Pac-12 champion didn't look very good. I didn't think Oregon looked great in their bowl game. They won it, but they didn't look great. Texas A&M looked okay, but it would have just been a rematch between Texas A&M and Alabama, and I don't know how excited I would have been about that. Texas A&M had their shot to beat Alabama and couldn't do it. Florida got blown away, of course, missing a lot of their good players. Cincinnati lost to, a good Georgia team, but a Georgia team that couldn't beat Alabama when they were pretty healthy. So I'm less upset about Notre Dame being in there, but I also think that we had three obviously elite teams and no one else who really stood out to that level this season. Moving on to the Clemson-Ohio State game. So really, I think the tale of that game was explosive plays by Ohio State, both on offense and defense. Ohio State got some huge chunk pass plays in there, had a really good running game, and had some really nice explosive plays on defense, forcing fumbles, getting tackles for loss. Really got Clemson behind the sticks a few times. I think that was the difference in that game. That amazing play by Justin Fields as well, taking that huge hit, only going out for a single play, coming back in, finishing the drive with a touchdown, finishing the rest of the game. And although he looked in pain and slowed down, he still made some amazing passes, some huge deep balls that were really perfect passes. I don't think really anyone there expected him to be able to do after seeing that hit that he took. The real question I have reference to that game. So Ohio State didn't play a lot of games. That was the big knock against them. But did we see that team get to the point where they were like in sync and meshed? So typically you'll see teams need 6-ish or so games into a season before they really get in stride and are playing their best football. They don't play well in the early parts of the season. They need actual time on the field. Players get comfortable. They get used to each other's timings, and you see things just sort of mesh together a little bit. Is that what we saw in this game? Or was it a Super Bowl for Ohio State? Getting the win after that tough comeback win by Clemson last year, where Ohio State looked like they had the game and then couldn't put it away. Which of those was this? If it was their Super Bowl, then can they keep that up for another game? If they're just a team that's in sync now, Alabama has something to worry about. So the stats in that Ohio State-Clemson game: total yards, Ohio State blew them away. And in this game, it was sort of the opposite of the Alabama-Notre Dame game, where pass yards, Clemson had more pass yards. And of course, that was because they were behind. They were having to throw the ball. But rush yards, Ohio State absolutely shut down Clemson on the ground. Clemson had nothing in the run game, and Ohio State ran the ball like crazy. 254 rushing yards in that game to 44 by Clemson. And something else interesting here, yards per pass, Ohio State was at 13.8 yards per pass. That is a ridiculous number. If they can get anywhere near that against Alabama, that game is going to be an absolute shootout. Now, Clemson was okay passing the ball. They were 8.3 yards per pass, which is very effective. Running the ball, Ohio State 5.8 yards per carry. Very good rushing numbers. Obviously, getting to 254 yards, Clemson was not able to slow down that run game at all. Held Clemson to 2 yards per carry. Really, a lot of that Ohio State's defensive line, the front seven, completely dominated the line of scrimmage, read plays well, got into the backfield, was able to pressure Trevor Lawrence, was able to sniff out the sort of semi-option plays that Ohio State likes to run, or Clemson likes to run. They have a lot of plays where they have designed runs with the quarterback on counter plays, completely shut those down. So my keys to the game here are some really good mashups to watch. So Ohio State's defensive line versus Alabama's O-line. Alabama without their starting center because he got injured in the SEC title game. That could be a big deal. Mac Jones is an excellent quarterback, but he is not the same kind of quarterback that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are, as far as he is not really a threat with his legs, and he's not a guy who likes to roll the pocket or move the pocket around. He is a definitive pocket passer, and he is great at it. But you don't see him moving outside of the pocket a lot. He's really very, very comfortable stepping up in the pocket, making accurate throws, making good reads. If Clemson or if Ohio State can pressure him in the pocket, I see Alabama having some trouble. Now, Alabama's wide receiving core, their skill position players, much, much better than Clemson's. I think Alabama has the best. I mean, Devontae Smith won the Heisman. I think it's not a huge leap to say that Alabama has the best wide receiving core in the country. They can definitely mitigate that somehow. They are really good. They have Steve Sarkisian is a very, very good offensive coordinator. He knows how to call an offense. I think he can mitigate that some if Ohio State's D-line is able to get some pressure. I do think Alabama is going to be able to score points in this game. Alabama has some of the best defensive backs. Surtain is an absolutely elite talent at corner. I think he's better than anything Clemson has. We'll see how he matches up with Ohio State's wide receivers, who really lit up Clemson in their game. Is Justin Fields healthy? He took that huge hit. I imagine that he is not going to be 100% in this game. I think, well, we'll see. I think at the very least he will be limited some in his running ability as far as like the power rush goes. I don't expect him to be super limited in passing, but we'll see. Sometimes injuries like that get worse over time because in the moment you're full of adrenaline. You get a steroid shot on the side of the field. You get back out there and you just sort of play through it. And, you know, after a week it sort of settles in, and then you're sore, you're hurting more. We'll see if that's an issue. If Justin Fields is not playing at his best, I think Alabama gets the win. I think he is the difference maker in this game. On the other side, Alabama with Waddle. Supposedly he is going to be back playing. We'll see if he is 100% or not. I imagine that Alabama would not waste the practice time if he was. I don't think they would waste practice time just to be a decoy. I think if he is getting practice time, if they're planning on putting him out there, he is going to be an actual threat, and they're going to plan on getting him the ball. That is just another outlet for Mac Jones. Absolutely, again, another elite player. Really, really helps that offense, especially on the like short slant routes over the middle. Going back to Ohio State, the run game. Can Ohio State get that run game going? Can they keep it going like they did against Clemson? Alabama has shown that people can run on them this season. If Ohio State runs the ball like they did I think that is one of the absolute keys to the game. They have to be able to continue that run game against Alabama. COVID issues for Ohio State. There's been a bunch of talk about it. People were talking about them possibly moving the game. They decided not to. How much of an issue is that? And then lastly, can Ohio State get these explosive plays on offense and defense like they did against Clemson? I think they need both. I think they're going to need explosive plays to keep up with Alabama, and I think they're going to need explosive plays on defense in order to limit Alabama enough to get ahead. I do like Alabama to win this game. If I'm given a pick straight up, I'm taking Alabama for some of those reasons. Questions about Justin Fields' health and possible COVID issues. Those two things could be the deciding factor in this game. I think if Justin Fields is not 100%, Ohio State can't win the game. Or if Justin Fields isn't playing near 100%, Ohio State can't win the game. I am going to take Ohio State plus the points here. I'm not super confident in that pick, again, for those issues of not knowing how many players are out with COVID issues, how much has that affected practice, and how close to 100% Justin Fields is going to be. I think if there is a blowout, and by blowout I think a win by 2 touchdowns would be a blowout in this game, no matter who does it. I would be much, much more surprised if Alabama won by 2 touchdowns than Ohio State. But I do expect this to be a very close game. I think it's going to be under that 8-point spread. Now, again, if Justin Fields is hurt or they had a lot of players out with COVID, then I think that goes out the window, and I think you could see Alabama win by 2 touchdowns. But given that I don't know any of that stuff, I am going with Ohio State plus the 8 points. I'm super excited. I think this could be a great game, a great way to end the season, a season that we didn't think we were going to have. I'm glad we're getting one more good one before it's over. Anyway, that's it for the season for me. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing something at least next season, and I'm trying to do some stuff over the off season. I'm not sure what I'll do, but it'll be something. I'll see you next time.